And moving from taxes to a theme that we've been following throughout the day here on CNBC Africa, identity theft. Now, international credit insurer Coface says the festive season may once again see an increase in business identity theft. They are cautioning companies about the dangers of fraud and specifically white-collar crime during the holiday period. Earlier, I spoke with Jacqui Jooste, Operations Director at Coface, for a closer look at this particular problem.
I don't think there's any clear indication of total value or what it's costing the economy, but it can be significant. One fraudulent case can cost up to 2.5–3 million just on one case. And there's a combination that's happening to a lot of different industries or most industries, but there's no official statistics in that regard.
Right, and of course we're moving towards the silly season now, if you may. In terms of trends, one would assume that this is a peak period in terms of identity fraud?
Most definitely. In our experience, holiday time, so Easter holidays, Christmas holidays, are the times where the criminals act more frequently or regularly. And I think it's because people are more relaxed, people are going on holiday, they may be not as vigilant with their credit control procedures, they might be short-staffed. So it's definitely a period where we warn our clients to be on high alert. Right.
Let's look at the types of identity theft that likely come out during this period.
There are a number of common ones that have been around for a few years. So the actual theft of identity of a business. Fraudsters here would target a well-known company or a well-known brand. They would submit a fraudulent credit application to a supplier and put fraudulent information there. The company that's getting the credit application will obviously think, oh, it's a really good company, let's open the account.
Right.
They will then get the order for delivery of goods, deliver those goods, none the wiser, and then the fraudsters disappear with the goods and obviously never pay for those goods. Very often those frauds are only picked up 30 or 60 days later, right, when they're trying to collect that money that is what is due to them.
So the fraudsters in this case would actually be at the premises of the alleged company to pick up the goods?
They could collect the goods from the premises, or they could ask for a delivery address at another alternate. Yes.
Right.
And that is another one of the fraud indicators where you have an existing client or customer, and they then phone you and say, instead of delivering at our normal address, please deliver our next delivery at this address. There again, they're impersonating a company and getting the goods delivered to a different address.
Right.
So it's very important for companies to, any changes like that, they validate them. Speak to someone that they trust at the company and confirm that change.
Right. Let's look at the feasibility of doing that, especially if we're saying that these are very well-known big companies with big brands and likely with big consumer bases. The likelihood of following up on every credit application that comes through?
It's imperative that you have a credit control procedure in place, that you follow it to the T.
Yeah.
Most companies do have a good credit control procedure, however this tends to lapse over that period. So it's important that every tick and check and balance is kept and is vigilantly checked over this period.
Jacqui, in addition to credit control procedures, how are businesses fighting back during this period?
I think it really is about awareness. It's about training your staff. It's about being aware that this exists and questioning, and not just accepting things on face value, and questioning changes that are requested.
I mean, when one looks at technology, for example, it seems as if it's on both sides of the coin. On the one hand, it enables corporates to get much closer to their customers, but it also seems to be an enabler for such things to happen. Where do we see technology actually perhaps playing a positive role in terms of curbing identity theft?
I think very much, and it's in terms of companies partnering with suppliers on on that basis. So increasing the information, getting information, maybe putting checks in place which are maybe automated through technology, which will raise a flag if there's something suspicious that's being raised on a credit application form, for example. So that could be an enabler to protect yourselves from.
Right. Are we finding that consumers are more trusting, though, of these online platforms? We've seen retail, for example, growing phenomenally with lots of online retail options now available across the different sectors. Is this a time to be wary about those platforms?
I think so. In terms of, I'd rather not comment on consumer basis, but I definitely think you know, the online platforms, and that everybody is so involved and so active online would play a role.
Right.
So I do think people just need to be aware that it is so prevalent and that there are so many fraudsters out there that are, you know, getting more advanced in their techniques to defraud people.
Yeah. Now, so beyond awareness, of course, it's always better when we have a best practice case study that we can latch onto. Is there a specific company or country that stands out for you that's really taken on identity theft in the corporate sector and brought those numbers down?
I think worldwide it's a focus. You hear about fraud weeks, and there's, you know, companies and countries focus on fraud, and not only white collar fraud, all different types of fraud. No one stands out for me as per se, but I do think there are a lot of large South African companies that are very effective by keeping those standard checks and balances in place, making sure their staff is trained and being aware of the potential.
In the instance where, you know, one of the pointers you raised earlier, which I found is really interesting, where the entire identity of a company is made fraudulent. When we look at the penalties in terms of this actually being followed through and find out to be fraudulent, do you find that in South Africa that the penalties are strong enough to be a deterrent for this type of activity?
Unfortunately, and in my experience, we have never, you know, with the cases that we've been involved in, we've never actually managed to find the criminals at the end of the day. We find that they disappear pretty much overnight. It's very difficult to track them down. So I've got no experience as to actually, you know, taking the process to court and how severe the penalties are.
So it sounds like the institutional and judicial response is not as agile as the criminals that are at the forefront of this activity.
Yeah, that's what it appears to be, yeah.
And looks like lots more still needs to be done. Jacqui, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, all of us on the lookout as we head into silly season.
Thank you very much for your opportunity.